Are you ready to commit and hold on to forgiveness? I know this whole process can be hard, and particularly depending on what has happened between you and the other person. Maybe it's just one difficult conversation in regards to political differences after the US election. Maybe there's been a history of hurt in this relationship, or through this entire election process, a whole bunch of hard things have been said and done to each other. I get that it can be hard to make that decision to forgive and to progress with emotional forgiveness. Hopefully, today's exercises, you can continue to move toward forgiveness and healing yourself. Remember, so much of the benefit of forgiveness is for you and not for the other person. So, in case if you haven't met me before, I'm Sharon. I'm a stress recovery coach that decided after seeing all of these videos that are out there, probably not even all, but a small fraction of the videos that are out there in regards to the US election, that we needed to start unifying. And the best way to do this is just one relationship at a time, not waiting for top down unification from the political leaders. So I just quickly put together something to help you and myself with healing family and other loved ones' relationships over election hurt. Hopefully, this is helpful for you. So let's recap. Forgiveness is a choice and it's made up of two parts. The first part is decisional forgiveness. This is a decision on how you want to treat the person in the future. A complete decision to forgive is when you decide not to pay back a hurt for a hurt, but you plan to treat the person as someone you value and appreciate. Emotional forgiveness is the second one. It's about replacing negative, unforgiving emotions like bitterness, resentment, anger, hate, with more positive emotions toward the wrongdoer. Forgiveness is not about forgetting the hurt, suppressing your feelings about the incident, or deciding not to pursue justice for the hurt. It's about going forward. It's all about healing your emotions so you can end up getting the benefits of physical, mental, spiritual, and relational well being. So let's test your memory and run through these with me. Emotional forgiveness is a five-step process, and each step corresponds with one of the letters in the word reach, REACH. So, what do each of these stand for? R stands for recall the hurt, E stands for empathize with the one who hurt you, A is give an altruistic gift of forgiveness, C is commit to forgiveness you've experienced, H is to hold on to forgiveness when you doubt. So, today we're going to combine lessons 7 and 8, if you're following along in the workbook, to focus on the last two steps. So let's get into the exercises. We're starting with commit to the forgiveness you experienced. The first two parts of this is about getting the commitment in writing. How much have you emotionally forgiven for this situation about election forgiveness? And how does that feel? Take a moment to jot that down in your own words. Feel free to pause the video if needed to complete the exercise. In my example, with the situation with my dad, I don't really have any residual negative emotions. Overall, I feel lighter and hopeful. So it's really nice to see how much it's changed from how pissed off I was the day that I've been focusing this situation on. The next part of writing out your commitment for emotional forgiveness is to complete a certificate of emotional forgiveness. So we'll start by writing this out in words, but then you can be creative and turn this into different formats depending on what expressive needs that you have. So, for example, to write this down, you want to fill in the blanks. I declare to myself that as of the date of whatever day, I have decided to forgive, name of the person, for summary of the situation. To date, I have forgiven whatever percentage of the emotional unforgiveness, and then you're going to sign it. So this is about committing where you are and that you're going to keep working on it. Another way to make this work if you're a little bit more spiritual, instead of just making a certificate, is to write a personal prayer. And I found personally for me, this is very effective. As you turn this sentence into a prayer, you want to just include it then into your regular prayers because that way, at least every day, you're continuing to progress on that emotional forgiveness. So, as an example, God, I've made a decision to forgive the name of the person for the transgression. I've forgiven so much percentage. Please help me to resolve remaining unforgiveness. So, like I said, this is just a written exercise at this point in time. Some people, to make it solidify or to be able to work out their emotions, it's better to express this in different formats. So, if you're more movement oriented and you need to do some creative uh, dance or other expression to form that commitment, maybe it's using some artwork, being a little bit more creative in the way that you're presenting this than just typing things out or writing things down in a journal. So take this to turn this into something that has real meaning for you so that you can solidify that commitment in your heart. So you may be asking, what if emotional forgiveness isn't complete? If you've experienced less than 100% emotional forgiveness, you might want to repeat the steps again. So, going back a couple of videos into exercises 5 and 6, as we were empathizing with the person, maybe you want to repeat those, but this time try to sympathize with the wrongdoer. Then try to experience an unselfish type of love for that person. These two emotions can replace unforgiveness just like empathy and compassion can. So maybe your relationship's not quite the same. It's not the same type of love that you'd had before, but you can still come into a type of love to allow that relationship to continue if that's what you're choosing. If you and the wrongdoer have a if you and the wrongdoer have a history of mutually hurtful acts, perhaps some big acts, some small acts, or you don't need to recall every hurt to effectively forgive the wrongdoer for hurting you. You can forgive the hurtfulness by taking the following 3 steps. Pick 2 or 3 of the most hurtful acts. They will symbolize all of the hurts that the person did for you. So work through each of the 2 or 3 acts until each one is forgiven. At some point, you'll have to decide that you've forgiven enough of these major hurts and that you have therefore forgiven the person. So, as I mentioned through this example, I feel that I've completely emotionally forgiven my father in the situation that I'd identified at the beginning in regards to election forgiveness and things. Just when I look back at it, I'm fearful of some of the conversations that went out of the control and ended up leading into hurtful things. So I still have a little bit of resentment on some of those past incidents that then I can work through this process to get so I am completely forgiven. I feel all of the hurts that have been done, that I believe have been done to me, that I can end up turning those into feelings of empathy and compassion and love, and that there's nothing holding me back from enjoying that relationship fully in the future. Moving into the next exercise. Sometimes it takes a little bit of symbolic activity, like that chair exercise, to truly work through everything on that uh, physical, mental, spiritual, and relational levels to understand what's going on. So if you want to get everything lined up, you might need to do some of these symbolic actions, like we talked about before. Here's another one of these. It's called hand washing. So on your hand, just write a brief description of the hurt, or even just the word hurt, and then go to the bathroom and wash it off. Were you able to get all of the ink off? So this is an example of how we can move through the reach forgiveness steps. Although it probably won't erase all of the bad feelings, it will lighten them up enough. Then repeated washings, you can become free of those negative and unforgiving feelings. Another symbolic way to do this is by writing it on paper and burning it. So whatever makes the most sense to you, to that feels like it's cathartic. There's one woman that I know, she's really super into quilting. And so for her, as she quilted and thought about the forgiveness and thought about where she wanted that relationship to be in the future, it was very healing to her as she made the quilt. It didn't make sense to give the quilt to the other person, so she donated that quilt in that person's name somewhere else. So as you go through these exercises, you can come up with creative ideas of what's specific to you and has a lot of meaning that can help you process towards forgiveness. And again, some simple things like daily prayer, meditation, journaling, all of these things can help as well. Another creative thought that I'd seen someone do is they wrote it all down and then just all the hard feelings and the hurt, they wrote it in the journal. And then to represent that they had moved on and released those feelings, they went over and just covered all of the writing with different designs because that felt like it was that full transformation symbolically from writing all that pain and the hurt down, all of those emotions, and then turning it into a beautiful piece of art representing what she wants to feel and to be in relationship going forward. So I hope that gives you a couple of ideas of some other things to do to help you continue to process through emotional forgiveness and to stick to your commitment. So we're going to move now into the H. Hold on to forgiveness when you doubt. Hello, 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 hello. You can control your emotions. You have a choice about your emotions. You can hold on to your unforgiving emotions, or if you replace those with love or empathy or sympathy or compassion, you can now hold on to your emotional forgiveness. You can do this even in the face of powerful events that demand that you give up that emotional forgiveness. Psychologist Fred Luskin suggests that experiencing negative emotions is like watching a television channel that makes you feel depressed, angry, afraid, or bitter. But importantly, you can change emotional channels. Choose a more positive emotional channel. So some of you may be wondering, how do you really do this? So I'm going to go through a couple of different questions, and this is how you go through this particular process. So take a moment and jot your thoughts down as we go through this, and feel free with each one if needed to pause the video. What negative emotional channels do you often watch? What positive emotional channels do you want to watch more of? Is there something stopping you from changing emotional channels? What is it? Can you commit to change channels and seek more positive experiences? Imagine yourself switching off negative, unforgiving emotions. Can you change the channel? Can you turn off the TV? So give that a try and work through that a few times to see how that helps lighten things up for you, at least to give you a direction of what to do when you're feeling things like resentment, anger that we've talked about, those unforgiving emotions. And there's all sorts of different techniques to do this. So if the channel changing thing doesn't resonate in your mind, there's a couple of other things you can do. When I work with my clients, I do a lot of a technique that's called capture, challenge, change, which really focuses on thoughts. And then from the thoughts, you can change your emotions. Because for some people, they have a lot of difficulty recognizing and acknowledging emotions unless they're really intense. And so there are ways that you can change your thoughts, your beliefs, and your behaviors. And by making changes to any of those, you can then change what your emotions are. Some people, it serves better to kind of recognize and name these emotions if they've been having a tendency to suppress them and not express things in the past. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. If the channel changing doesn't work for you, please reach out, email me if you want some other ideas on how to do this. So moving along, there may be times when you doubt whether you really emotionally forgave. You've worked hard and experienced either a complete or a partial emotional forgiveness, but maybe you doubt that you've actually forgiven. Can you think of times when you've had similar doubts? So there are times when you get triggered, and that's fully understandable. These are what uh, this author calls hot reminders. Seeing the person unexpectedly, experiencing a similar hurt from someone else, getting hurt by the same person again. And then there's cold reminders when you worry about the past and or think that the past is going to repeat itself. So these times you very often may feel like, oh my goodness, I haven't forgiven. I have so much more work to do. But understand these are here. These experiences are just part of life. And as we go through this, it's going to remind us of the hurts that we've had, but we can face them and change them because what's happened in the past doesn't need to determine what's going on now and in the moment. So, when you have one of these triggering experiences, you can hold on to the forgiveness. So, let's go through this exercise. List several things that you could do to avoid becoming bitter or hateful again during a cold reminder situation. So remember, a cold reminder is times when you worry about the past or you're thinking that the past is going to repeat itself in the future. How do you get your mind going in a new direction? And this is completely opinion. This is based upon your experiences of how you've been able to flip things around in your own life. So for me, I always end up looking to the future and really focus on seeing what is the hope and the potential, that silver lining that's in the future instead of looking at the past. And if I'm going into the past, I try to shift it to positive memories. It's so easy just to cling on to those negative memories that we forget the good ones. And so, particularly when we have a long-standing, loving relationship with someone that we want to continue into the future, we have to balance all of these negative thoughts with positive ones to allow us to hold on to our forgiveness and keep moving forward. So now we're going to go do the other type of trigger, the hot reminder situation. So remember that seeing the person unexpectedly, experiencing a similar hurt from someone else, getting hurt by the same person again. So how might you deal with each different type of hot reminder? Maybe you can think of other triggers that you have that could get you to feel as if that you haven't forgiven or to bring back all of the pain and the hurts that you've experienced before. So think about as many situations as you can and write them down. I'll give you a moment on that. For me, I had to really think hard on this because particularly around the situation that I'm working with in this, I'm not triggered by seeing the person unexpectedly or experiencing hurt from someone else of a similar nature. For example, my husband and I, we have differences of opinion on politics all the times, and we argue. That's fine. It doesn't negatively impact any other things. It's just, okay, that's part of what we do. And we don't make it personal. Others can do what they want because if it's a stranger, I don't really feel anything very vested in regards to political differences, and they don't really cause tension as things come up. So, but getting hurt by the same person again, that's the one that I am fearful of. So, if I find myself triggered, I need to slow my thoughts and feelings with deep breathing and stay calm and then try to steer the conversation back within agreed upon conversational norms. Because, at least in my case, we've previously agreed to that politics is something we just don't talk about. And we're fine with that. So if it comes up, it's acceptable for us to steer the conversation to someone else or to change the topic. So, did you have any ahas as you thought through those? Some ideas on how you might, based upon prior experiences, handle when you get triggered and start to doubt whether you've experienced forgiveness towards this person or this situation? So moving into the next example, exercise, it's called important example. So remembering past harms is often how we protect ourselves from doing something dangerous again. So remember when you were a little kid and your mom said, "Oh, don't touch the stove. It's hot. You're going to burn yourself," but you didn't believe her and you at some point put your hand on your stove and touched it and went, "Ow, that's hot." And so whenever you get near the stove, don't put your hand near the hot. That's not unforgiveness. It's against the stove. It's your body's way of protecting you, saying, "You got hurt before, be careful or you're going to get hurt again." If you keep touching a hot stove, you're going to get burned. You have to change your actions and the way you think about the hurt to keep it from happening again. So it makes sense that there will be times when the pain, the anger, the fear arise from a memory or an encounter with the person who hurt us that are not unforgiveness. It's just a memory. Like I said, it doesn't take away the pain that you felt when the transgression happened, when the hurt occurred. You still experience that. It's still a memory. So there's still going to be something you can recall, or it will pop up as a reminder, just like other memories get triggered, even of good things. So when you see the person who hurt you and feel the negative feelings again, remind yourself the pain, the anger, and the fear that I'm feeling, it's not unforgiveness. It's just my body's way of protecting me so I won't make the same mistakes as last time. So when you have these worries and these emotions come up, you want to try some of those tactics that we just talked about in regards to the hot and cold reminders. Here's another technique. This exercise is called control your worry. So try controlling your thoughts. Have you heard about the white bear phenomena? Now spend the next 20 seconds trying not to think about white bears. What worked and what didn't? So for me, saying don't think about white bears never works because all you do is you think about white bears. And for me to have this work, I have to think about brown bears. I have to think about white chickens. I have to change the topic so that I can shift. This is from a thought standpoint, I change the channel. So usually people find that directly commanding themselves, don't think about the white bears, just makes them think about white bears more. What can you apply from this exercise when you start thinking about the time when the person hurt you? So one of the things that I put down as an answer to this is about remembering positive memories. So anytime that I have a recollection or feel the feelings coming back up, I can always go back to a positive memory that I have as an association with that person. That allows me to move into the current moment and to get out of that negative memory and to restore my normal sense of calm or peace. And whatever's going on in the moment, then focus on that moment to be able to move forward. So your techniques may be different than mine. This is just what I found with the experiences in my life in terms of how, in essence, I can change my thoughts, how I can change my feelings when I'm with someone and feel something coming up that's not necessarily appropriate to the current situation. So knowing that these triggers are going to happen, that you're going to run into an emotional flare in a hot or cold situation, it is so much better to plan ahead. So if you see the person who offended you or obsess about the past event, you'll probably feel angry and resentment and all this stuff come back up. But it's easy to interpret this anger as proof that your forgiveness is not true forgiveness. But you should feel angry if you see someone who has hurt you. It absolutely makes sense. Somebody hurt you. Somebody came, for example, let's say somebody cut you with a knife accidentally. You have a right to be upset and to be angry that somebody cut you. Okay, that's fine. You don't need to interpret this though as anything more than, okay, this person hurt me before, and you just need to be careful so that you don't get hurt again. It doesn't mean that just because you see the person that they're going to grab a knife and then cut you again, particularly if it was incidental. It all depends on that situation. So Acknowledge your feelings. You don't have to stuff them. Recognize what they're trying to tell you. It could just be that dashboard warning of be careful, be careful, be careful. Don't let something bad happen. So if you feel you've mostly forgiven the person who hurt you and you feel angry when you see that person, what will you think to yourself? So you feel the anger coming up as you see this person. Write a sentence or two that can cause you can use to convince yourself that you've truly forgiven and that you feel angry for another reason, or that it's just that reminder to be careful. So take a moment and write down a couple of sentences in that. How are you going to end up using this anger that you feel kind of as that dashboard warning light? Or how are you going to change the channel on that emotion so that you can stay in forgiveness and the feelings of empathy, compassion, sympathy for this individual? So for me, at this stage, there's really no anger. I've had several multiple interactions since the incident that I've been focusing on with the emotional forgiveness. I do have to watch for irritability. Technically it's anger, but it's a lower level of intensity, and remind myself that it, if my father brings up politics, he's just stating his opinion. It was just a natural flow of his train of thoughts. And if I don't rise to it, the conversation can be changed and or I can leave. We've already agreed to boundaries and it's just about reinforcing them. I'm going to summarize the different ways that you can hold on to forgiveness. So, whenever you get triggered with a reminder experience, whether it's a hot or a cold reminder or a trigger, whatever way you want to think about it, you want to get yourself out of that situation, you want to distract yourself. You identified a couple of specific ways that make sense to you to use in a situation like this in the future. Then there's the ways to hold on to forgiveness if you start to worry or obsess about it. So I'm going to list through a couple of things, and you may have come up with a few on your own as well. Realize that the pain of remembered hurt is not unforgiveness. It's just a reminder so that you don't repeat it again. You don't need to dwell on negative emotions. You can recognize them, acknowledge them, and then change the channel. Switch to something else. Remind yourself that you have forgiven the person, that you value the relationship, and there's no need for those emotions in the current moment. So it's just another way of changing the channel. When things pop up, you can always go to a third person. You can seek reassurance from a partner or a trusted friend to help you get perspective in regards to the situation. If you want to take a look at any of the stuff that you've written down, you've got your workbook, any journal entries or other documents that you've created in regards to this forgiveness exercise. And you can always take a look again at the Reach Forgiveness model and go through the steps again just to see what's going on, what's changed. And in some cases, it may be there is a brand new hurt. We know that we run into people and nobody's perfect. Somebody may end up hurting you again, which is why all of this stuff is surfaced. So just be aware that could be a situation too. Don't just ignore your feelings and take them as a dashboard warning light if there has been yet another hurt that's occurred. So, which of these ways do you intend to try more of in the future? Anything else that you came up with? I'd love to hear it in the comments if you get an opportunity. So, another thing to do is passing along the information is a great way to demonstrate that you get it. So, if you repeat things, you can end up solidifying your learning. And it's not just mindless repetition, but trying to teach someone else or being able to use it in real life and put it in application. So, do you want to prove to yourself that you really understand how to emotionally forgive? Here's a couple of simple things. Tell someone who is important to you, a spouse, a friend, a family member, the difference between decisional and emotional forgiveness. I don't think many people are aware of that. It would be helpful for them to understand the difference and help them explain and help them understand then how to achieve emotional forgiveness through the Reach Forgiveness model, through each of the different 5 steps. Or you can tell 5 other people what you told to this other person. By sharing these concepts or sharing the experience, telling your story, sharing your testimony, you can help others understand that forgiveness is possible, and it helps you reinforce the process and solidify your learning for yourself. Summarizing everything that I've covered in the video so far today, we went through the commit and hold on parts of the reach model. So you've learned that writing your experiences can make them better. I also recommended that you can take different ways than just writing to solidify the experience based upon what forms of expression mean the most to you. Filling out a certificate of forgiveness and stating the amount of forgiveness you have experienced will solidify it and help you recall that whenever you've got any doubt or anything comes back up is you get triggered. Doubt is inevitable in things like feelings and emotions. Two steps forward, one step back. It's a regular occurrence, and it's by constantly taking those forward steps that we can heal. Also, by having it in your writing, you're able to remind yourself. It's that tangible reminder of the work that you've done so you don't forget about it. Because even we all have bad days, and sometimes we forget how much we've grown and progressed on those bad days and need something concrete to look at and remind ourselves. So you learn several things you can do if your emotional forgiveness is not complete at this stage. You can go back through the model a couple more times. You can go back through the E and the A, the empathize and the altruistic gift steps and exercises one more time. If that doesn't do it, you can take a look at using, instead of empathy and compassion, look at sympathy and unselfish love to see if those emotions are more accessible to you for the situation. And so it can just be like care when you think of unselfish love, not something intense like a romantic love or a friendship love, just something that allows you to move forward, that's heartfelt so that you feel some value or appreciation for the person. So you learn that you do not have to forgive every little hurt to forgive a person, because sometimes, unfortunately, people hurt you multiple times. It happens in relationships. So if you need to, if the one situation that you work through is not enough because there's so much other stuff going on that's coming up as you work through forgiveness, two or three vivid offenses that you work through the reach model, picking a couple of these other big ones, are enough to help you feel that you've forgiven the person. Because once you've gone through the big ones, the smaller ones are a lot easier. Again, this is all about small incremental approaches and just continuing on that progress of emotional forgiveness. So you've learned a lot that will help you hold on to the forgiveness you have experienced. You've learned that you will probably doubt whether forgiveness you've experienced is real or not. But just know that your feelings are true. They're a reminder. They're that dashboard light giving you a warning not to be hurt again. And then it's up to you how you can most effectively change the channel to some so that you're feeling emotions that are more appropriate to the current moment and the way that you want to feel towards this person. If you have any questions on this exercise, I know I went through them pretty quickly. Email me at sharon@whisperingfieldswellness.com. If you feel that forgiveness and gratitude can help you reduce the tension in work relationships, let me know. I'd love to pick your brain for some ideas on a package, and I'm offering some free coaching and mentoring in return. So this wraps up the main exercises for you to focus on your specific election forgiveness situation. So we've gone through the whole model and all of the different steps, and I really truly hope that you are feeling better about this person and on your way to having decisional and emotional forgiveness for this person and for this situation. If all of this feels pretty good and you want to be more forgiving in general, in the next episode, I'll discuss how to become a more forgiving person overall. I pray that you are feeling less hard feelings towards your loved ones who voted differently than you and are beginning to feel that forgiveness is possible and that there is a way to heal the relationship. I hope to see you next episode. Have a blessed day.